So the new film by Cronin revolves around a young girl named Katie who is living with her family, the Cronins, with her older brother in Cairo, Egypt. Her father is out here on assignment. He is trying to get noticed and get a better position as a journalist. And we see that Katie is also here living her life as much as she can, being in the scouts and all, until one day she gets taken by a mysterious woman, and this mysterious woman vanishes her from thin air. Nobody knows what happened to her. Nobody in Cairo can even come to terms to where exactly Katie is, and we see 8 years pass and the family has sort of moved on from her in a way. They've gone back to living in the States. There's a new daughter as well that the mother was pregnant with at the time. She's 8 now. The older brother's a little bit older, and they're living with Granny at home until one day she is unearthed and she is found by the Cairo Police Department. So Katie was missing for 8 years and then is eventually found again in a 3,000-year-old sarcophagus, and her family brings her back to the States. She is looking very decrepit. She looks like a mummy pretty much. She had been mummified and nobody knows why. Nobody knows what's going on with Katie, as she is showcasing aggression. She is showcasing that she is more of a different form than human. And this isn't the Katie they remember. The family's really grieving her now because they see that she's here with them, but it's like she's not really here anymore. She is completely gone and something else has taken over her body. We see as this story spans different continents as people try to figure out what happened to Katie and what is going on here. Unbeknownst to everybody, however, whatever creature or spirit is now inhabiting Katie, it's changing the rest of the family, including the younger sister and also the older brother, even going as far as to one point killing the granny. And that's pretty much where all hell breaks loose, as Katie seems to be wanting flesh. And we see that she is sort of using her siblings to destroy the family from within. The dad finds out that she was actually mummified at some point, as she has these like rags that have scriptures all over them. And when he takes them to a professor to decipher them, the professor lets him know, hey, these scriptures talk about this malevolent spirit, and it's a malevolent spirit from ancient Egypt. So there's something going on with her. Now what happens next is the Cairo Police Department detective is able to figure out that Katie was actually mummified by this family from the beginning, and the reason they did that is because they have a spirit that would inhabit the land they were from, that they were trying to capture inside of Katie, because for many decades this family has done this to victims in order to keep the spirit at bay. And they realize at a certain point that if you find a very young victim to put the demon into them, then the victim's gonna live a long time, because the victim keeps aging. Once I believe the victim has aged to a certain point, they need to find a new host. And at this point in time, Katie was the closest host because Katie was friends with the younger family member, and so it was just easy prey. Katie was preyed on by the woman that we see at the beginning of the film, who was also a magician, once they find out that the host that they were using at that time had become too old. Throughout the film, we also see that Katie has been sort of like gnawing at her skin, trying to rip it apart, and we quickly find out that this is because she has these like scriptures all around her, these bandages. The Nazmoranian has been imprisoned inside of Katie, and we see it through a VHS tape that the detective watches, that this was actually a ritual performed by the magician and the rest of her family in order to transfer the spirit from the decrepit body of the previous host into the now like young Katie, so that the spirit will still be at bay. And for them, it's best when it's a young person. In this case, it is going to be the Cronins' youngest daughter, Katie, who is now going to become mummified in order to hold this demon. She will be hosting this demon inside of her body, and that was one of the most gruesome things to see, and downright evil and just horrific, when they were transferring this demonic being into this young, innocent little girl. And I was just like, this is some dark shit, honestly. Throughout the film as well, we saw that Katie would be gnawing at her skin, and it seems that things really took a shift once the mom broke through her skin when she was trying to cut her nails. And that's because this is when the like scriptures started to rip out of her body, and the Nazmoranian was able to gain more power. So as we see the spirit sort of start to become more powerful, it starts to take off its skin more, and even asks the other sibling to do that for them in order to fully escape and come out, eventually leading leading to a clash between the father Charlie, the mother Larissa, the detective, as well as the rest of the family going at it. Even dead Granny comes back to life to sort of put their allegiance to this Nazmaranian. Ultimately, by the end, during this whole clash, we see that the father Charlie decides that the best thing he can do in this moment is to just save Katie, even if that means putting his life on the line. So he gets the demon transferred into him thanks to Detective Zaki, and we see that the demon now lies within him, and Katie is saved, coming back to normal pretty much. The rest of the family is able to move on now, and the father is now kept locked in a sort of like sarcophagus of sorts that they make shift there. And we see that they just move on from this. It seems as we see Katie is now normal, and we see the rest of the family is trying to move on from this, but the mother Larissa can't, and she decides to call in a favor from Detective Zaki. They eventually go back to Cairo where they meet with the magician, and this time what they're going to do is transfer from Charlie, the demon, into the magician. Thus now the magician will have the demon inside of her. And I think it's really great to see this film try to sort of tackle this whole like missing child dilemma in a way where it is just horrific, because I think the movie really shines when it showcases just how horrible it is if a child goes missing and you don't know what happened to them, and throughout the agony the parents are suffering through. And I think that's where the film was really at its strongest. A lot of this very much so dealing as well, you could say, with SA and grooming and all of that, especially the beginning of the film where we find out that Katie had been sort of groomed in order to trust these people. That way, when the time eventually came when they were going to take her, it was a little bit easier for them to get to her, even though she was trying to get away from them at one point. It was just too late already. She was already in their grip, and they were able to do so. Also, I think with her being in a catatonic state, just showcasing the trauma that people that do end up going missing or being kidnapped for years or however long it is end up being in this state of not knowing, of not being able to sort of grip with reality anymore. And that's pretty much what we see from Katie here. On the surface level, this film is just about a demon, an Egyptian demon in this case, that has to be contained in human bodies. The bodies are then mummified alive, so they keep aging, because Katie of course was like 8 years old, and by the time that the film picked up again with her returning, she was like 17. So the body keeps aging while the demon's inside, and I believe that this family eventually, once the body gets too old, has to find another host, and they've been doing this for generations, for thousands of years, in order to save humanity from this demon coming out. So it's like they have to do it, and of course they choose the youngest. It kind of sucks and it's kind of crazy, but it seems that they have to do this for some reason. So it's kind of crazy at the end as well that now they put the magician as the host for the demon, but who's going to be next, right? That's what I was thinking when I was watching it. Mummy 2, do we get that with Lee Cronin? So that's pretty much all that happened on a surface level. I think once we dig deeper and think about sort of like children being kidnapped, missing children, lost children, and children being abused, SA, things like that, it sort of becomes more deeper, where they talk about Katie being trafficked as well. And I think a lot of what you see in this film is sort of like representing that, because Katie is eventually found, but she of course is not the old Katie she used to be. Even after the demon is taken out of her, she is still scarred. Of course, physically you see the scars, but I think internally as well. I think it sort of talks about maybe like people that eventually go through all of this, where they are abducted, they are trafficked, they are used, abused by whoever does this. They may try to get back, they may try to find some normalcy, but is it ever really found? And this trauma continues throughout the whole family. The Egyptian demon is called the family divider, and I think that this, of course, is a family divider. It was dividing the whole family. It caused the parents to fight one another, the siblings to go up against each other, and even it kills the grandma in the end. And I think it's the divider here of what the family doesn't know. Like, they're not sure how to go forward anymore. You could also sort of say, like, when a relative gets very sick and you're trying to figure out how do you keep going, how do you treat them and all of that, and at the same time you want to be there for them, you want to be for your loved ones, but it's also a heavy toll to take care of somebody who can't take care of themselves anymore. And yes, you love them and you feel all this for them, but it's still a very heavy thing. And I think that's a lot of what the film is getting at here, which I really thought was when the film was the brightest and strongest, when it was going for these things, and ultimately kind of falls apart
apart when it tries to do other things where it's just not as strong anymore. But I do think that that is pretty much what The Mummy is all about. It's about the anguish and the terror of having a child go missing, not knowing what happened to them, and then having the very heavy responsibility when you find them again. There is a relief, there is a happiness, but there's also a void that can't be filled anymore, and it's hard to try and fill that. And at the same time, as somebody like Katie who was in a catatonic state and the family's just trying their best and they don't know exactly what to do, it's very frustrating. Although it's your loved one and somebody you've been wanting to return, you're just like, I don't know this person anymore. I don't know what to do. And it's just eating away at me that I want them to be normal again, but they can't be normal. They'll never be normal again. They've gone through something horrific, and I'm just here trying to do my best, but I'm not getting anything else. And it's just very human to feel that way and feel desperate about these things.
Also, this demon, the Nazmarian, is the family divider, and that's why we saw throughout the film it divided the family as much as it could, from the parents fighting about what was going to happen with Katie, what was the best approach to her, to the siblings as well being divided from the family. We saw the youngest sister now is acting up at school, also the older brother as well, sort of going against the mother at one point when they're having the final showdown with the mummy and all of that, and the grandmother as well ultimately being killed. It was kind of crazy. Carmen was the only one that was killed. Kind of crazy right there, but that's pretty much where we are here with this ending. I thought it was a lot of interesting takes that Lee Cronin was doing and swings here throughout. Ultimately, a lot of them don't land in the way I think he was intending to do so, but I thought it was an interesting take for the mummy to sort of be a demon of sorts that was being taken throughout the generations to be kept in these hosts, and this family was sort of having to deal with that as well. And it's kind of crazy that they were doing this in order to save humanity, but the magician lady ultimately was the one that got punished, and it was kind of crazy. It's like, well, who's gonna get the demon next? But overall, that is how Katie is saved, thanks to her father taking the demon and Dahlia being able to memorize the chant that the family used, and thus the demon was transferred into Charlie, and now Katie is going to be able to live a full regular life. But of course, the family was not going to be happy if Charlie wasn't able to join them as well, and that's why they decide to find the magician to transfer the demon into her now, and now she's pretty much going to suffer until they have to find somebody else. So it's an interesting dilemma now, because do we have a Mummy 2? Probably. So we'll see what happens, but let me know what you thought about the film in the comments down below. What do you think about the ending and all of that? Do you think we get a sequel? More than likely it's coming, but we'll have to wait and see. We'll have to wait and see. But as always, that's going to do it for me. Hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell on the road to 50,000 subscribers. Let's get to it. I'll see you next time. Stay safe, stay positive.